Hey, folks, welcome to the Zapata Brand Podcast, Boxing Edition, sponsored by Ringside. Go to ringside.com/podcast, and you too could get upwards of 40% off selected brands. Well, I wanted to know what's going on with Conor McGregor and who else to get than Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com. When I look for combat sports, I go to this man, Kevin Iole. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, George. How are you?
I don't know. What really right out of the gate, Kevin? What in the world is going on with Conor McGregor?
Well, if you know, then you're the only person outside of a very small group of people, Conor McGregor, his people, and the top UFC executives. They have really closed ranks on this one. Very quiet. I suspect that not a lot of people know. I think, the highest people in the UFC organization know. The highest people close to Conor McGregor and the highest people close to Michael Chandler know. And I think that is it. What I suspect, and I could be off on this, I think that maybe Conor's leg is still not 100% healthy, and that he's having second thoughts based on what he's doing in training and seeing his leg. But as far as I know, there's no reason to suspect that, anything untoward is going on. So I think really, to me, and the way I see this, George, is that, his leg, that was a really bad break he had in 2021 against Dustin Poirier, and there were numerous complications. And I think that to me seems like the most likely thing. I admit that I don't know. I'm like everybody else, we're waiting to hear, but I think that would probably be as good a guess as any.
Okay, so here's the question here. If this is such a big deal, a big event, this is a big, huge event, why so close? If it's not going to happen or is going to happen, why are they closing ranks so much? Why not give them some idea as to where they're going?
Well, I think they're trying to save things, right? And look, the reason this is different than any other event is the ticket prices, right? They're talking a $20 million gate, which would be the biggest gate, in UFC history. So I think as a result of that, what was UFC 300? I think it was 17.5 million.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, you're talking a gate of over 20 million here. So as a result of that, they have to put a card on that is commensurate with that. Now, the return of Conor McGregor would have allowed them to have less of a card than the rest of UFC 300. The UFC is always trying to put the best card on that they can, but you go through your normal pay-per-views, your tentpole pay-per-views like UFC 300, like International Fight Week, and when you get all those out of the way, sometimes it doesn't line up where you have everybody available. So, John Jones is not available. They would love to have him in a situation like this where he could fight. He is saying he's going to fight in November. Conor McGregor is their second biggest star. He's not available. Justin Gaethje, he fought at UFC 300. He said he was going to take 6 months to a year off. Max Holloway, I don't think would be available. And you start going down the list of their people. Do they bring Volkanovski back on short notice? There's so many. Do they bring Adesanya in? They have to come up with a really good card. Because I don't see them turning around and saying, okay, we're going to cut the ticket prices and giving money back, right?
No.
And so I think that they're going to, want to keep it. So I think that's why they're being quiet. They're trying to see if, hey, can we, whatever this issue is, whether it's a potential injury to Conor or whether, there's some kind of thing going on in his life that's giving him second thoughts about fighting at this point, they're trying to resolve that and be able to go forward.
Now, I'm going to throw something out there, and if there was one person that would jump in that I think would legitimately have a chance and would jump in and jump right at it, you said no, but Max Holloway, I think, would be the logical fit there. He did fight a fight with Gaethje just recently at 300. I think he would be a logical where you could keep the ticket prices the way they are and have people say, oh, you know what, this is a good, because you have people that are flying in, getting hotel rooms, getting all this stuff, and then to throw this curveball in, unless he's hurt, I think Max Holloway is the only one that could really, because not to say that Michael Chandler's a bad fighter, but he doesn't have that name draw that you have there, I think Max Holloway would be a logical fit, would it not?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Chandler is a good B side. Michael Chandler is not an A side that you're going to run a pay per view with him as the A side, especially a pay per view like this. This is their big show of the year, right? The International Fight Week, the July 4th show, they get the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority spends a lot of money sponsoring that show. That's when they have their Hall of Fame, UFC X. They have a lot of stuff going on that week. It is a big week for MMA. And I just, so Michael Chandler is not going to be able to headline that without Conor McGregor. Max Holloway, Michael Chandler is a good fight. It's a fun fight. It's not a significant fight. Chandler's got a number of losses, and Holloway's up here, right? Holloway's looking at fighting Ilia Topuria probably in Spain for the title later this year. So do you bring him in to save this show and then potentially put that show at jeopardy? So there's a lot of moving parts. And, people are only going to pay top dollar for certain fights. Normally July lines up really well with them, but they've run into some issues with availability, and they're stacking some of these cards. So as a result, now the co-main event of this show is Carlos Ulberg versus Jamal Hill. That's not a fight that fun fight, but it's not a main event on a $20 million card. And so they are hurting. They got to find something to put in if indeed Conor's out, which we don't know for sure.
Can you rule out any drug, alcohol issues related to this?
I cannot rule it out, but I can't rule it in. I don't believe that is the case. There's been no rumblings to that effect. Now the UFC's drug testing is internal now, so it's a little different than it was before. But I believe if that were the case, I would have heard something, and I've heard nothing. So while I cannot rule it out, I can't rule it in. I do not think, my gut tells me that's not true, but I think we're going to have to wait and see.
I think you're going to have to lean towards injury, but you never know. This has been if you're Michael Chandler, you really got to be at your wit's end with this. Something you didn't sign up for all this. This is a nightmare. This has been a 2-year nightmare for him. Does Michael move on, or does he,
I mean, what does he do at this point, right? Because I think he made a really foolish decision waiting for Conor all this time, right? So how many fights has he missed? It's been over 2 years since he last fought. And, he's kind of just fallen off the map, right? There's people almost laughing at him sitting there waiting for Conor. And here's what I don't understand about it. Yeah, you're going to make a little more money to fight Conor, right? But he's not getting part of the pay-per-view. Conor certainly would get the pay-per-view. Michael Chandler is not going to get the pay-per-view. So whatever Michael Chandler was, negotiated, that's what he's going to get paid against Conor McGregor. Now, does he think that beating Conor McGregor at this stage of Conor McGregor, when he's lost a lot of these fights and then is been off for all this period of time, is that going to all of a sudden, make people think, oh, I want to see Michael Chandler? Michael Chandler is what he is. He's a fun, entertaining fighter. He's not really a championship contender. He's a guy that's, in my mind, a notch below that. He's a good guy. He's a great ambassador for the UFC, a great ambassador for the sport, who puts on fun fights, but he makes a lot of mistakes. He gets caught, and he loses to the elite people that he fights. So, to me, Mike has made a mistake here waiting all this time. So after having waited all this time, if Conor McGregor says, well, I can't fight again until August, what's the difference now? Chandler might as well wait, right? What else does he do?
Right, but I think maybe Michael Chandler deep down might have known that there's a chance he could go in with someone that he can get taken out. I know no fighters think that way, but I would take my risk with Conor McGregor, knowing I could get paid big money. Whether I know he doesn't get the pay-per-view, but he get big money there, and get a Conor who's on his. If he don't fight now, and this would be my next question. I mean, one, do you see Conor McGregor back in the ring, or two, this will be a long time out for Conor, and he's not getting better; he's getting worse.
Right.
So
no, I I think when you look at it, you go, hey, if Conor McGregor doesn't fight, does he ever fight again? But I think before we go to that point, George, we have to know what we're dealing with here, right? I mean, is he? I don't think it's this, because the UFC and Conor have always done business well together. Dana even said at UFC 298, Conor's been a great business partner. Conor wants as much as he can get, and the UFC wants to pay as less as they can pay, and they ended up meeting somewhere in the middle, right?
Right.
But once they meet, they don't have issues. So I don't think it's a financial thing where Conor's saying, well, you know what, I want to renegotiate the deal this late, right? I just don't see that being the case. As you asked me before, I don't think it's a drug alcohol issue, right? Like if you look at those videos that Conor was putting out, him in the nightclubs, do we know were they accurate? Like Ryan Garcia, we knew they were accurate because people who were there were saying, hey, Ryan Garcia was in the club on Monday night. Ryan Garcia was on the club on Tuesday. And then Ryan Garcia himself said that, right? In Conor's case, he put these things out and he likes to mess with people, and Dana made a point on the press conference Saturday night. He said, well, in some of those videos that you see him in the club, he's got a beard. And other videos, you see him in the club, he doesn't have a beard. So, right. When were those shot? And so I think that was Conor being Conor, just trying to play with everybody and see what he can, get people to jump to.
I'm going to stick with what I believe. I believe this is an injury. Oh, Kev, where'd you go there? Kev, you still there?
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. I'm going to believe it's an injury to Conor McGregor, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say he may not fight again, but if he does and he fights Michael Chandler knocks him out. I think we're seeing the tail end of Conor McGregor. It's tough to get up in the morning wearing those silk pajamas. It's 2-3 years out. Come on, enough with the antics. The antics can only sell so much.
The public loves him, right? The media loves him. I like Conor. But I'm not going to cheer at an announcement that he's fighting. But like at UFC 298, when Dana, or I think it was UFC 298, maybe it was a different one. No, I take it back. It was UFC 300. And for people who didn't see the press conference, you probably, even if you saw the press conference, the camera wasn't on. Hunter Campbell was in the front of the room off to the side. And so I was sitting in the first row all the way to the right. And whoever was on the dais, I think it was Holloway at that point. No, I take it back. It wasn't Holloway. It was Dana. Duh. Okay. Dana was on the dais, and I was sitting, would have been to Dana's left. It was my right. And Hunter Campbell was 10 feet in front of me. He came over to the person sitting next to me and he says, "Can I borrow your notebook?" And Hunter goes over and he walks and he writes down and he scribbles a note. And then he folds it and he walks up and he hands the note to Dana. And Dana opens the note and says, "I got some fight announcements. Conor McGregor is going to fight Michael Chandler at UFC 300. Dustin Poirier is going to fight Islam Makhachev at 302. UFC 302. And when they announced Conor was fighting, everybody cheered, right? That's media that's supposedly supposed to be, unbiased and, just reporting the news. And those media people that were there, not everybody, but a lot of those people cheered. The fans love this guy. Look at the gate that they've got, right? People flying from all over the world to come into Las Vegas because Conor McGregor's on the show. So, I don't think that, the UFC, let's go with Michael Chandler and Max Holloway. They're going to do everything they can to keep Conor McGregor in that show because of clearly what he means more than anybody else.
The strangest thing, Kevin, is this guy hasn't won in a long time.
Yeah.
He hasn't won in a long time. I mean, I liked him I think I like his personality was good. Got a little weird once he started getting a lot of money, but some reason he's likable, but he hasn't won in a long time, guys. Let's be honest here. He really hasn't. Well, if he can pull this one off and they can get this match together, you know what? Good for Michael Chandler. He deserves it for waiting this long. He really does. So, well, I mean, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't think anybody does. If you don't know, who else? Who would know other than the people that you have mentioned before?
Yeah, no, I think it's tough. Dana knows, Hunter Campbell knows, Ari Emanuel knows, Lawrence Epstein, who is the chief operating officer, he knows. Beyond those four, does anybody know? In the UFC, I don't. Mark Shapiro would know, right? So, maybe Nick Khan knows, who is the head, the head of TKO, the WWE head. That would be it on the UFC side. There's nobody else that knows. And you could talk to the PR people till you're blue in the face, or you could talk to the UFC has a lot of executives, and they have a big office building over there, and you could talk to all those people over there till you're blue in the face, and they're not going to be able to tell you anything because they don't know it. And on the Conor McGregor side, I think it's Conor, his coach, his family, his manager Ari Emanuel.
No.
But yeah, no, Ari Emanuel's not his manager, but his management team, and that's it. And I don't think anybody else is aware of this. I don't even think Chandler knows the specifics of what's going on. So, that would be my guess, right? Because I don't think they want Chandler out there, leaking it out. So my guess is Chandler knows, hey, there's a problem. The fight may or may not happen. We're working on it, and that's it. So yeah, the circle of people is very small.
Well, I could tell you, if Dana White slips Kevin Iole a note, you could just go to KevinIole.com, and I'm sure you'll break the news.
We're going to have it if he does that. I have a feeling that you're going to see a press conference online. You're going to hear Dana say, "Hey, I'm going to go on Instagram or Twitter, and we're going to make an announcement." And I think if in fact the fight is canceled, that'll be happen, or if there's a substantive change to the card. The other thing that we haven't considered, and I think this is far less likely, what if something's wrong with Chandler? Everybody's saying it's Conor.
Oh, good point.
So if it's Chandler, it's less urgent. But if something happened to Chandler, where Chandler fell ill and maybe couldn't make it to the press conference, or Chandler injured himself, and they can get another opponent to replace Chandler without too much trouble, right? The question would be, though, how long do they wait? Right now, as we record this, they got almost a month. They got a little over 3 weeks, till fight night. But so we haven't considered that it might be Chandler who's the person that has the issue here, and not Conor.
Well, I'm sure once we hear it, Kevin, you'll be one of the first to report it. Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com. As always, thanks for the short notice podcast you jump on. Hey, and your camera looks fantastic.
Finally. Well, let's hope it stays that way.
Oh, I'm sure it will. It's Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
You got it, brother.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.